Welcome back to Kill Rock Radio. My name is Rocky. Back up in this motherfucker. I had a whole other show I was working on with several points. Some of it will be mixed in here with this episode. But obviously, Ozzy Osbourne passed away. I didn't come to Ozzy on my own. I didn't hear Ozzy on the radio and say, oh, that's pretty cool. My fucking uncle hooked me up with Ozzy. You know, that's how Ozzy gets around. Ozzy gets passed down from generation to generation. And it's going to continue even though Ozzy's gone. I am sad that Ozzy's gone. But at the same time, like, this isn't the same as, like, you know, when I was a little kid and Kurt Cobain died, I fucking cried for like days. I was really legitimately sad. In this case, once again, most people felt Ozzy was not a guy that was meant to live. I mean, 76 years? That's a hell of a run for a man who snorted ants. The man who wrote Snowblind. You know, the guy he loved getting fucked up. He loved living life. And God knows, I mean, who could say they've lived more life than Ozzy Osbourne? So I'm not here to be sad about it. Ozzy lived a great life. He did amazing things. He carved his name in the face of history. Really, Ozzy lived past the expected lifespan of an average person. So Ozzy outlasted that shit. When you think about the level of debauchery that Ozzy Osbourne has taken part in within the scope of his lifetime, it's very difficult to believe that Ozzy lived as long as he did. Ozzy, if you look back to where he starts, Ozzy always tells the story about when he first heard the Beatles. It was like going to sleep in black and white and waking up in a colorful world. And based on that, Ozzy went forward with the idea of being a performer. The guy was he is the greatest heavy metal frontman ever. I don't give a fuck what nobody has to say. Bruce Dickinson can sing his ass off. You know what? Shove it up your stinky ass. Every metal band that has ever fucking earned $1 owes something to Ozzy Osbourne and the members of Black Sabbath for founding and birthing heavy metal. People talk about, what was the first heavy metal? Some point back to the Beatles, Helter Skelter, Jimi Hendrix, Led Zeppelin. But the bottom line is there is one big bang moment in the history of heavy metal, and that is when Tony Iommi and Ozzy Osbourne get this idea, let's be to music what the horror genre is to film. Simple concept. Nobody had ever thought of it before. That is the moment that metal was born. Everything since then, like they talk about the Big Bang, they say the thing about the Big Bang is that it's still happening. That's why the universe continues to expand. Because the Big Bang, that explosion, it was so huge that it's still happening out at the edges of space. And that is the case of the Big Bang that was Black Sabbath. It is still happening. When you put on new bands, you're hearing the remnants of the Big Bang that Ozzy Osbourne was such a huge fundamental part of. They were all on drugs. People act like Black Sabbath were over there clutching their pearls at Ozzy. The bottom line is they were all on drugs. Ozzy was just way more on drugs than them. And so he was becoming an insufferable drug addict, total fucking mess. So they shit-canned him, and you would have thought Ozzy was done at that point. The story goes that, he was just radioactive. He went to a hotel room, he got as much cocaine as he could, and he was ready to fucking die.
To me, you seem like a dude who knows what's up.
But a young up-and-coming agent, who would come to be known as Sharon Osbourne, her dad was an agent, and I guess she was looking to get her foot in the door or whatever. At this point, Ozzy was like just sloppy as fuck. He was fat. He was just a total mess. And she scooped him up. And, it's relative. Ozzy was such a supernova clean him up is a relative term. Basically, she got him upright again. So yeah, Sharon Osbourne comes, finds him in his shithole hotel room. She scoops him up. They fall in love. She starts fucking him. She starts making him dress better. And before you know it, as unlikely as it would seem, Ozzy Osbourne becomes one of the biggest rock stars in the world. Like, he just looked awful at times, but Ozzy was always like willing to put himself out there. He was always trying to stay sort of on the edge. The thing about Ozzy is he hid nothing. With Ozzy, everything was just on the vest, man. You knew it because he would fucking admit to it. And I think that's part of what endeared him to people, is that he was very flawed and he let you know about it. You know, everybody has like a family member who's got a drug problem or has a mental health issue or something like that. And, you know, they might do fucked up things here and there, but you're like you gotta love them anyway. You gotta support them anyway. Ozzy spent the whole last half of his life attempting to stay sober, but at the same time, he would acknowledge, like, dude, I'm never far from a relapse. Ozzy was directly responsible for a lot of the biggest rock and heavy metal acts of the last 50 years. When you look at it, I know Nikki Sixx says that Motley Crue, that they credit Ozzy with giving them their start. And then just look at the Ozfest. Think of how many big heavy metal bands got their big break from being on the Ozfest. The festival started up initially because Ozzy wanted to get on Lollapalooza. And they were like, fuck you.
You can kiss my ass!
Metal was not seen as being cool. And as a result, you know, there weren't a lot of places for metal bands to play in those days. And so when Ozzy got given the fuck you by Lollapalooza, him and Sharon, they said, we're starting our own festival, the Ozfest. And over the years, like I said, there's an entire generation of kids who, you know, it was, well, kids, they're fucking grown-ass people now, that it was there like every summer. That's what you do. You knew at some point during the summer, pinnacle was going to be when you and your homies got together and all went out and spent the day at Ozfest. And you knew it would end with Big Ozzy, sometimes with Black Sabbath, sometimes by himself. The obvious biggest band that came out of Ozfest was Slipknot. Slipknot started on the second stage. They were unknowns. By the time it was done, they were headliners. Other than Slipknot, you had System of a Down. I remember seeing Incubus there when they were second stage. And not only were they second stage, they were second stage like early in the day, you know? I also remember one year going, and I was at the spot getting a beer, you know? And this dude literally comes running up. This bald, stone cold looking heavy metal motherfucker comes running up and he goes, dude, this fucking band is about to take the stage. Everybody's going fucking crazy. Everybody's saying they're the next big shit, man. And it was Disturbed. And they were second stage. You know, Static X, Cold Chamber, Kitty, Mudvayne. I mean, if you really sit and think about it, there's so many bands that came out of the Ozfest. Ozfest every year, it was so well curated by Sharon and Jack and Kelly, because Jack and Kelly had a lot of input into the bands. But every year, it was almost like a yearly snapshot. It was like the state of metal. You know, you'd show up, you'd see all the new bands that were in the pipeline. You'd see the bad motherfuckers, the current kings maybe, and then it finished with the titans. The gods came down from the mount, and you'd hear the likes of Judas Priest, Slayer, Pantera, and it would always finish with the king himself, Ozzy Osbourne. It cannot be overstated the value and the impact that Ozzy Osbourne had. There is no replacement. From here, it's interesting to see what the future looks like. I literally have never known a world without Ozzy Osbourne in it. In a weird way, like, you could always depend on Ozzy. He'd always show up. He'd always be there. he is one of the most underestimated dudes ever, because you look at him and you hear him, he could barely even fucking talk coherently. Even when he was young, when he was old, it at least kind of made more sense. But when the lights would come up, that's when Ozzy would fucking turn on, man. And you could always know, even if this motherfucker couldn't even move, he'd be out there kicking ass because he's Ozzy and that's what he fucking does. Anyone should be so lucky to live half the fucking life that Ozzy Osbourne has lived. He leaves behind a great family. He leaves behind an amazing legacy. Who could have done it better than the godfather of heavy metal, now moving on to his place as the Zeus of heavy metal? He is truly the top motherfucker. I'm going to have a drink for Ozzy Osbourne this weekend, maybe 2 or 3. Salud to Ozzy Osbourne. God bless you. Thank you so much. It cannot be overstated how much everybody owes Ozzy Osbourne, everybody that gives a fuck about hard rock and heavy metal. It just wouldn't be what it is without Ozzy. So thank you very much, Ozzy. And anyways, moving on. I want to talk about something that happened to me last week. I don't know if you guys have heard of this band, The Warning. They're a band that has done really well. They're really popular right now. I mean, they're on tour, and that motherfucker is selling out everywhere. And little girls love this band. And my niece is one of those little girls. So The Warning was in town. I said, you know what? Let's get some VIP ass tickets, because she's a kid. I'm not going to have her in there with these fucking ruffians. Just a quick background on The Warning, for those of you who are not familiar with them. The Warning is a band. It's 3 sisters from Monterrey, Mexico. As talented as they are, and I don't want to take anything from them because they are talented and they deserve that, they are also pretty. And wherever you have attractive ladies, you're going to have gooners. There was a really weird vibe at The Warning show. I'll say, it was disconcerting. There was a noticeable contingent of old dudes in their 50s and 60s who were not only at the show, they were up in the fucking front. They were not like you could tell these weren't like hard rock, heavy metal people. These motherfuckers all were just like people who look like they just, you got out of work, you put on your fresh Hawaiian button up, whatever the fuck, one button undone so you can show the gray pubes.
Read all about this in this month's issue of Things That Make Me Vomit.
The pit was just like thick with dudes. I saw some very, very old looking motherfuckers there. So I'm there up in my VIP ass area and we're chilling, I got some White Claws at the table. I got my niece, I got a broad with me. I'm fucking doing my thing. And I look at the audience, the way my shit was set up, I was sort of on the same level as the stage. So you could see sort of the audience from a little bit above. And I noticed that at the front of the stage, it was just bald head, white hair, bald head, white hair, male pattern baldness. It was such a weird crowd because it was either old dudes or pre-teen girls and, the people who brought them. I thought of that. I said, okay, well, you have to assume some of these guys have brought little girls here like I did. And you just look around, you saw a lot of kids. And, you could tell who the adults were that had a kid with them. These guys were all together. It didn't make sense to me is all I'm saying. And I asked the lady that I was with, I said, hey, is it me? Or are there a lot of really old fucking nerdy looking motherfuckers here?
Am I wrong?
No.
Am I wrong?
And everybody agreed, it's a little odd. I'm not bragging or oh, I go to shows, but I do go to a lot of shows, and obviously I'm middle-aged, So I know what it is to be an older guy at the show. Most shows you go to, it's going to be mostly young kids, unless you're checking out one of these legacy bands. Metallica is a good example. You go to that show, there's a ton of old people, like really old people. But like they look like cool heavy metal old people. They got like a heavy metal t-shirt and fucking jeans, and they just look like dudes, they're just old. They happen to be fucking old. And, as one of the older guys at the show, I know where we tend to hang out. You lay in the back, kind of by the bar, so you can get drinks. The kids aren't buying drinks. They don't give a shit. They don't have the money to do it, even if they wanted to. So you chill back by the bar. You're not trying to be in the pit. You're not trying to have people fuck with you. You're past that. You're just chilling. That's really the role of the older dude at a hard rock or heavy metal show. The Warning, they have not been doing this that long. In a lot of ways, they're still an up-and-coming band, so it's odd to me that there seems to be a traveling pack of really old guys who are very into this group of girls. Another thing I noticed, they were all white guys. It wasn't like 50, 60, 70-year-olds of all shapes and sizes and colors. These were old white men. And I only say that they're white. I only even mention their whiteness because that's part of kind of what doesn't make sense to me. Like, once again, these girls are from Monterrey, Mexico, and several of the songs in their set are done in Spanish. Of all the bands that you would decide to follow around, why this group of young Hispanic women who, a quarter of their set is in Spanish?
You understand, you motherfucker?
These older people, a lot of them followed the Warning from town to town to town. Okay, think about any band that you like, right? How long did it take that band to develop the type of following where people would follow them from town to town? How long did that take? It's just weird to me. I don't get it. I'm trying to understand it. I went to the band's Reddit to see if anybody else had noticed this, and there was a much more nicely worded version up there where, they were asking about like, hey, have y'all noticed there's like older people at the show? I mean, listen, I don't want to say these motherfuckers are PDF files. What I am saying is it was really weird and it was really noticeable. As a dude who goes to a lot of shows, as a guy who tends to be one of the oldest people at the fucking show, some people on the Reddit said, well, this band reminds us of bands like from our time, so we don't get that too much or whatever. Bullshit. Right now, there's a ton of bands you could go watch if you're into like a 90s style, grungy type rock. But really, those were the two things that you noticed looking at the crowd. A, there were a lot of younger kids there. And B, there was just an unsettling amount of dudes in their 50s and 60s who were up at the front. They weren't moshing. They were up at the front staring at these fucking girls. Why are they following the Warning around? Are they dangerous? Are the Warning in any danger? Do they need a warning of these fucking weird creepos? I don't think there's going to be an answer because no one can answer this honestly. I just thought it was a little odd that there was such a large number of dudes that looked like they just stepped out of To Catch a Predator videos. Just saying, has anyone else noticed this? If so, let me know, please. Anyways, moving on. So here's the part where I read your listener comments. Normally we talk about stuff from the previous episode, but I'm going to go ahead and do some instant reaction because people, specifically old, long, bald fans of The Warning are fucking mad at me.
You're gonna die, you dainty little fuck.
I'd like to get into some of the messages, talk about it a little bit, because quite honestly, I think we're all kind of on the same page here.
I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
And then, like, the bulk of you were just like, really, really defensive. And now I'm sort of, it shifted my fascination. What started off as just me relaying a story, just my own experience at the show, somehow that turned into this big, apparently, fuck you to the Warning fan base. And that's not what I intended. So let's go ahead and get into your comments here. And maybe I can explain myself a little bit better. How about that?
Okay, good luck, ho. Next call.
We got my boy Brett C. He says, wow, so let me get this straight. Grown men enjoying talented musician equals creepy now? Newsflash, The Warning didn't build a global fan base just off kids and teens. These old dudes you're mocking, some have been supporting the band since their YouTube basement days. They're musicians, veterans, parents, real fans who respect the music and the message. Don't confuse admiration with obsession. And don't paint loyal supporters with a nasty brush just because they don't fit your idea of what a rock fan should look like. This fan base spans generations. That's not weird, it's powerful. Maybe instead of raising red flags, you should raise your awareness. And I thank you to all the Warning fans who told me more about the background of the band. Like, dude, this is my niece's favorite band. I knew nothing of these motherfuckers. The first time I'd ever seen these women is when they took the stage right in front of me. So the first time I ever see them, I see them as grown-ass women. So I'm almost like, I'm not even thrown off by the concept that people would be enamored with the women, that they would find them alluring, if you will.
I get in that. You know what I'm saying?
So you're really, really, really oversimplifying things. This is some shit people do when they're arguing on the internet. So grown men enjoying talented musicians equals creepy now? No. That's all, I made a point to say, I'm not saying they're all here like, oh, because they want to fuck or something like that. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is it was weird, and I assume there's that element there. That pit area tends to be full of kids. That's where everybody's going crazy. This isn't like the fucking Beach Boys up there. This is a band of young, vital women. Everybody talks about how much they fucking rock. I agree. It was a great show. They kicked ass. I'd have no problem going and seeing them again. But that being said, I have never seen such a huge concentration of old dongers up front. These were not people with their wives. These were not people with little kids with them, their daughters, in my case, my niece, all that shit. This was not that. These were single dudes, all fucking pushed together like an 18-pack of old dick.
You are getting me rock hard.
Like when you go to the grocery store and you see an old motherfucker walking around with like slides and like short shorts and a fucking Hawaiian shirt and shit like that. That's what this was. And it was like 3-4 rows deep of that shit. Even if the kids had wanted to mosh, they couldn't have. The entire front area was fucking constipated with old motherfuckers, like turds themselves, just fucking standing there. They were just clogging all the shit up. Next, my homie SoCal D says, first, these old dudes have been following these sisters since they were little kids. It's more like proud uncles and brothers and friends and supporters. You were part of the crowd. Even if you had an excuse for involving your child, you were being talked about too, I would imagine. The first time I saw this band, they were 9, 12, and 14 years old. I've been following them ever since. The old guys don't care for the quote-unquote tons of bullshit bands you referenced. You should talk about how awesome this family band is. Get your mind out of your negative world. You are correct that there are a lot of people, a lot of fans that have been following these women since they were younger girls, and they've watched them all along, and they're rooting for them, and they just think they're fucking great musicians and all that, and they come out just to see the show. I'm not saying that's not true. That's likely true for many of the fans. But what I'm also seeing is this just complete inability to accept that anyone in the fan base over a certain age has any sort of sexual ideas about these women. These are grown women. So the fact that people keep kind of like equating it back to any sort of PDF file type shit, that tells me that you still see them as little kids. And, on some level, that's sweet, I guess. But the bottom line is, these are grown-ass women, and guys check them out. Like, look at any band that has a female singer. There are simps. That's just what's up. And if the fan base of this band is made up of a lot of old motherfuckers, then that tells me that there are some old simps. I'm not saying they're all old simps. Not at all. That's not what I'm saying. If you're a fan of The Warning and you seriously have no weird feelings about them other than just really rooting for them and being proud of them and shit like that, more power to you. I think back to the 90s when I was a kid and I first really started getting into music. It was like grunge and shit like that. And a lot of the girls that I knew, they loved Pearl Jam. And of course, they all had huge crushes on Eddie Vedder. Every chick wanted to get with Eddie Vedder. Eddie Vedder on the cover of all the teen girl magazines and all that shit. But if you would talk to them about the band, they knew every song, they knew every word, some of them could play the music. They were fanatical about the music. The fact that they wanted to hook up with Eddie Vedder, it had nothing to do with their fandom. It didn't taint it. It didn't make it dirty or fucked up. All I'm saying is I saw some simping, and the fact that no one can admit that that's even a possibility, it makes me say, what the fuck? This is almost cult-like. Are you guys the fucking Borg? Do you all have one mind? I saw a lot of comments where it's like, this is not on any of the dudes' minds. How the fuck would you know? You can read minds now, motherfucker? You're like an old Professor X? I guess Professor X is old. But you know what I'm saying? You can't read minds. You don't know what the fuck's going on. You don't know what somebody pumps off to at night.
I mean, I guess I'm a pretty sick guy.
How many times, back in the day when Sinead O'Connor ripped up that picture of the Pope and said that, priests were raping kids. Everybody's like, oh, that bitch, why would priests rape kids? That's just ridiculous. They just want to, turns out the priests were raping the fucking kids. Maybe y'all should have the more open mind and not say, well, no, The Warning fan could possibly have nefarious ideas about things they'd want to do with the band members. If you're truly just a fan of their music, why are you so offended that I'm saying some of these old fucking weirdos are probably, polishing their knob over the girls?
Jesus Christ, man, there's just some things you don't talk about in public.
And thank you to the people in the comments that were honest and could admit there are some creepy motherfuckers that have been around the band. I was just pointing out that they were there. I made a point to say in my video, I am not accusing these people of anything. All's I'm saying is that when you've got all these old motherfuckers herded up front, there's gotta be a reason for it. Next, my homeboy Eleazar says, as someone old school, what precisely made me resist listening to them was the prejudice of seeing them as young and pretty. Probably just another pre-packaged girl band, I thought. But one day I finally decided to check them out, and I couldn't hold back a tear when I heard a sound I hadn't heard in a long time. I've always believed that those who accuse the older generation of being creepy just for liking The Warning's music are actually projecting. Because I can assure you, for us older folks with lower testosterone levels, the idea of sexualizing them doesn't even cross our minds. Dude, Eleazar, I'm telling you, with respect, you don't know what's going through people's mind. You don't know what they do on their own time. You don't know what's happening. You can tell me how you feel, and if that's the way you feel, then look, you're welcome to be there. Like the previous message said, I'm sure if somebody might have looked at me and said, oh, look at that Look at that stupid asshole up there with his White Claw. What's his fucking problem? I'm sure people talk shit all the time. I talk shit about them all the time. It's only fair. But this idea, oh, because we're old, we don't have, like, our dicks don't work, so no need to be scared. There's a lot of old perverts with working dicks. Why are we assuming nobody's dick works? How do we know what the entire fan base is doing? How do we know that? That's ridiculous. If you're telling me that it's never crossed anyone's mind that these women are attractive and like, man, it'd be nice to take them on a date or something like that, you're wrong. You're just wrong, because it's human nature. It's, you know, as long as you do have testosterone and as long as you can summon up even like an 80% boner, you're going to have these thoughts. It's our curse as men.
I said I like women. Women. I said women. I'm not gay.
But I mean, I'm sure when I'm in my 60s, there will be 20-something-year-old women that I'll see, and I'll be like, wow, that's quite a looker, quite alluring. And, you know, maybe I might get my shit on half swole. That's built into our DNA, son. Next. My homie Tim says, these ladies have more dads and granddads looking out for them than any band in history. They play great rock and roll. You're absolutely right. They do play great rock and roll. It was a great show. And I'm not saying that these women need to be protected. I'm sure, I would at least hope, they have, you know, a great staff that helps protect them. Some people have said that their parents, I think, are on tour with them, so that's fantastic. I have no beef with the band whatsoever. That was just a thing I noticed, and it really touched a nerve, which in and of itself kind of makes me wonder if I'm not totally fucking right on with what I'm saying. I noticed several made comments about, well, you know, I put into their Patreon and I'm part of the reason why they're where they are today. A lot of you Patreon motherfuckers really feel good about yourselves, huh? That the band couldn't have made it without you, huh? There is a weird ownership here. The more I look into this gets weirder and weirder. Like, I feel like if I was these women, I would feel just a tremendous burden, because like I saw so many comments referring to the GoFundMes and the Patreon and, you know, we built this band and all that shit. There is a real sense of ownership that the fan base seems to have. I was simply referring to a small group of people that I saw as really sloppy old simps, and that's it. That's the only comment I made, that I thought they were there. I didn't see a problem with them being simps, except that, it is weird to be so old and then be lusting after women so young. But like I said, we're always sort of the same. We're, Ghost in the Shell and all that. So why wouldn't you be attracted to, these beautiful, young, talented women? And more so, like, why can't anyone just admit to that? It's not a negative thing to say that you think they're hot. It doesn't mean you're not a fan of their music. I mean, throughout our lives, do we not tend to sexualize the people that we're fans of? Like I remember, when I was a kid, I completely got into Tori Amos. I don't know if anybody remembers her from the 90s. Amazing singer-songwriter. She was like a prodigy and just a gorgeous woman, like just a beautiful, beautiful woman. And of course, being a teenage walking boner, I can fully admit I was a fucking goon for her hard. I was simping like a motherfucker for Tori Amos. And when she came to my state, I followed her just like these guys are following The Warning. And I can admit that a part of my fandom was that I lusted after her. It doesn't mean that I didn't love those albums and that, I don't know all the songs fucking back and forth. That I haven't listened to them endlessly over the years. And every time I would see her, I wanted to be as close to her as I could possibly be, because I wanted to gawk at her. I wanted to see Tori. And I can admit that. Why can't anybody admit, like, you know what? That's part of it. I think they're great, but also they're not too bad to look at. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not like Satan here trying to convince you that it's fine to be into little kids. These are grown women. Once again. Next, my homie James says you have a very twisted view of older men who go to the Warning concerts. I look at these young ladies as a talent that we have not seen in a long time. I feel a great deal of pride in them as great musicians and beautiful human beings. Also, obviously, you don't feel that way, or you wouldn't refer to your companion as a broad. You should be ashamed. I did get several you should be ashamed, and I got one I'm ashamed of you, and it's like, God damn, like somebody out there is ashamed of me? Shit. But, you know, I gotta stand by what I said there. It's just what I saw. Don't shoot the messenger. A lot of these people act like, well, I listen to The Warning because I love old school rock music and this is my only option. It's just not true. I'm going to make a Spotify playlist for you motherfuckers. I probably won't get around to it. But, you know, that would be a good idea. That'd be a good thing I could do for y'all. But anyways, on the other side, I did get this comment from a woman on the Kill Rock Radio Instagram. And she's looking for anonymity. So I'm just going to call her Jan. And you know what? Hers is really long, so I'm just going to read some segments of it. She says, the perving over Ale is sickening. A kid still. Yes, she's a beautiful young woman, but y'all been drooling over her since she was 12. I'm glad you called them out. And once again, it's just what I'm saying. It's not everybody. It's, you know, if you're not like that, I'm not talking to you, dude. She also says, notice it's the men, not women being defensive. You can be a fan of their talent, watch them grow up into beautiful, talented women, but you're just fans and that's it. You can't tell me the women aren't uncomfortable with older men gawking at them. Whenever they play outside of the US, they're more comfortable playing because it's much more diverse, more younger fans up front. Check out their Argentina concert from 24. Big fucking difference. Anyway, don't worry about the old wrinkle balls coming for you. They're just mad because you hurt their feelings, LOL. Thank you so much, Jan. So, you know, for everybody who says, oh, there's not even a hint of that, here you have somebody saying that's not true, that there is an element there. And listen, within every fan base, there is a toxic element. You know, even if you're a fan of a football team, there's the weirdo who's going to get way too drunk and just like punches a guy for no reason. That doesn't mean all the fans of the team are fucking animals. It's just this one guy, he took it too far. So if you feel you don't simp for the women of The Warning, dude, that's totally fine. I'm not talking about you. And I'm going to wrap up with my homie Paul, who says a lot of these fans are on their Patreon and have supported them for years. I can assure you the conversation there has absolutely no sexual innuendo and is much more about protecting the girls. Some might say overprotecting. Could there be a creeper or two? Of course. But for the vast majority of the older fans, your take is simply wrong. Once again, I just want to make this fully clear. My last word on it. If you're a fan of The Warning and you're an old-ass fan of The Warning, you're welcome to it. And I'm not talking about all of you. I am talking about what even I would say is a minority. I'm not saying you guys are a cult of like weird PDF files. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is there are a few gooners. Really, like what my homie Paul here is saying. Is there a creeper or two? Yeah. So, I'm right? Or what? I mean, if there are a few, really, that's all I'm saying. The place was packed from front to back with fans of The Warning. And so if I'm saying, you know, maybe 15, 20 guys up front were simping and shit, that's still a tiny, tiny sliver of the overall audience. So I'm not talking about y'all. Why are you guys taking this as if I'm speaking about all of you? You are not one consciousness. You are not one giant single cell. You can follow these women around, but understand there's going to be motherfuckers who think it's weird. And I'm one of them. I mean, honestly, it's just one dude's opinion. I'm not reporting this like this is news. I don't have any facts behind it. I'm not saying a damn thing about the warning in terms of like how much they kick ass. I think they kick a lot of ass. I think they're awesome. And I think anyone who hasn't seen them, who gets the chance to see them, should go see them regardless of your age, regardless of your race and all that shit. I'm just reporting what I saw. And, you know, if you really think like, oh, that's completely impossible that anyone in this fan base looks at these young women that way, I think you got your head up your ass, because that's just not human behavior. I'm sure a lot of you really do feel that way. It is about pride, and it is about, you know, rooting for them and wanting to see shit. But there's a lot of this that just comes off very almost like cultish. And the portion of people that seem to feel like they own a part of the band and shit like that, maybe you guys are a little too hands-on. Maybe back off a bit. But anyways, thank you guys. Everyone who did comment, even if you said mean shit to me, I appreciate the feedback. If you're a fan of the show and you want to support the show, go to killrockradio.co. If you go to .com, it's this like weird Asian gambling site. It's going to fuck your whole world up. Don't do it. killrockradio.co. If you want to support the show and get some merch, we got Kill Rock Radio koozies to keep your drinks nice and cool. And then we've got some awesome devil stickers illustrated by yours truly. If you want to buy any of these things, they're nice, little fun, cheap items, tariff-free, that you can get that will support the show. Thank you guys so much. And on that note, I will let you motherfuckers go. So until next time, I will talk to you crazy motherfuckers later. Peace.
Got any questions or comments? Send them to info@killrockradio.com. To keep up with the latest and catch up on past interviews and clips, search Kill Rock Radio on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Subscribe to Kill Rock Radio wherever you listen to podcasts. I'm like, oh my god, just listen to it already. Wherever you listen to podcasts.